here with Paul Selig, talking about his teachings and the teachings of his guides. And before the break, we just talked about the upper room. So Paul, share with us, what is the upper room? What is that about?
I mean, I understand it as a level of consciousness that one can align to. They've called it different things, Christ mind. My favorite explanation or instruction on this is that they say everything is in tone or sound or music, and that we together here, all of us, are operating in a shared octave of experience and expression. It's got its own highs, its own lows, but this is a shared construct of reality that we operate in. They say that the upper room is the next octave up, And if you can imagine a piece of music being transposed to be played in a higher octave, that's the transposition that we undergo through this work. We're aligning to our true nature, which expresses in a higher vibration. And the process of shifting from one octave to another is much of what they're taking us through, which isn't terribly comfortable because all of our attachments are known through this inherited field that we've been operating from. So the upper room is where things are indeed made new, and they teach us how to align to it and then how to lift things to it, so that we're not always running back downstairs to the lower vibrational field to fix things or to get things as we think they should be. I mean, they're speaking here to the inherent divinity of all things. That the source of all things is present in all manifestation. And you can't lift to its true nature what you are condemning or fearful of. They say, for example, you can't lift the evil man to the upper room because you've made him evil. And by making him evil, you've aligned to him at that level. You've called yourself to that level of vibrational accord. So releasing the ideas of who others are, what things should be, which is all prescriptive and based in history, allows you to re-know or re-see and then consequently lift to this level of consciousness what you're encountering, which they actually call alchemy. They say it's an alchemical act, the realization of spirit in matter, the true essence of all things. They say renders matter as malleable. You understand? Because frankly, it's all, the metaphor they use is like a painting. You look at a painting and there are people, there are objects, whatever the landscape is and the narrative that has been painted. And the only way we know what things are is how they're formed. And this resembles a tree, that resembles a man. And that's resembled through the choices of pigment and the different colors used to render the different shades and shapes. And they say, but if you get beyond that, it's just paint. It's all paint. It's one paint being expressed in all these different ways. And all we're seeing or doing is attaching narrative meaning to it. When you release the narrative meaning and you bring things back to their initial state, which is the paint or what creates the paint, you then can repaint and you can have a very different experience of reality.
So this is seeing the divinity in everything?
That's what they're talking about. Yep, that's what they're talking about. I mean, it's mind-blowing when you can do it, and they're trying to teach us how to do it. In fact, I suspect that they are. I do workshops all over the world now, and people are having these experiences with it. But, the big challenge is, at least for me, is I deny the divine in myself still. And if I'm denying it in myself, I'm not going to be able to perceive it in others.
Why do we do that? Why do we deny the divine in ourselves? What are we afraid of?
I'm going to see if I can get it from the guides, because I'd like to answer this. They're saying we would like to answer this. You're frightened of being true. You're frightened of being who you truly are because you've become accustomed to the old, the challenge that the old brought you. The challenges that the old has brought you is how you know yourself, is how you know yourself and what you create from and what you create from. The identity is not challenged. The identity that is not challenged, that knows herself and worth, that knows herself and worth, himself and love, himself in love is indeed the true self, is indeed indeed the true self, but to align to that. But to align to that must mean you've been mistaken, must mean you have been mistaken about who you think you are, about who you think you are. And if that is the case, you are not there at all. You are not there at all. It's a belief. It's the belief that you will be exterminated, extinguished, or lost if you claim the true nature of your being, if you claim the true nature of your being. In fact, that's not what happens. In fact, that's not what happens as you integrate the higher. As you integrate the higher, as you release what's no longer needed, as you release what's no longer needed, as you align to your potential in a new way, as you align to your potential in a new way, the true self comes forth. The true self comes forth, indeed, at the cost of the old. Indeed, at the cost of the old, but the life that you live, but the life that you live on earth, in form is a new articulation, is a new articulation of the idea of who you are, of the idea of who you are, the divine that has come as you, the divine that has come as you is your true expression, period. And they're saying period.
So is it true that we think who we are, or is it that we are not also told this is who we are? Basically, I think about myself as I was told you're a doctor, you have a career in the medical field, and that's who you are because my parents were doctors. And isn't that like often just the belief, the frame that you mentioned before that we are put into?
Well, there's nothing wrong with knowing yourself through what you do. The problem is when you use those labels to define you at the cost of who you are beyond that. So who are you if you're not a doctor? What if something happened tomorrow, God forbid, and you couldn't practice medicine? Would you still be the doctor? Right. If I have been the best looking person I've known my whole life and something happens to change that, who am I then? Who am I without the marriage, without the pedigree, without the education, without all of the things that I assume I am and demand to be met with and through in the world? The guides have talked about the small self and the things that you're speaking of as ways we know ourselves in commerce, in almost finance. It's like agreement in commerce, which is I'm the doctor, you're the patient. I'm the husband, you're the wife. I'm the pet owner, you're the one who's going to fix my dog up when she gets sick. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with that. They say it's valuable to know whose desk to sit at, but you're not your job, you're not your gender, you're not your ethnicity, you're not your age, you're not the money you have in the bank account. Those are ways of knowing the self, but they are not who you truly are. So is some of this chosen? Yes. Is some of it inherited? Absolutely, because we come into a world where things have been endowed with meaning and we agree to the meaning. So, for example, the lump of coal and the diamond have been assigned value. Who says the diamond is more valuable? Well, that's how it's been, so that's what we know. And in fact, if you're trying to make a fire, the lump of coal might be more helpful, might be better. A hamburger and a mansion have two very different values unless you're starving. You understand that? And then the value changes. So we live in this landscape where everything has meaning, and we've given it that, and then we put ourselves right into that equation. So I'm only a man if I do this or that, or I resemble this or that, or I've accomplished this or that. And we claim tremendous unhappiness, I suspect, as a result of that too, because, we're participating in this charade, the guides call it, where, it's an opportunity to learn. It's not a bad thing. You can learn in the charade. You put on the mask of a doctor, I put on the mask of the channeler, we have a conversation, we both learn, we come away different from it. This is all positive, but what the guides are saying is, the masquerade ball is ending, is what they say. The costumes are dropping, the masks are coming off. And when you've had a mask that you've been operating with your whole life, and that begins to become unsteady and to leave, it's fairly terrifying, because it's like if you pick a rock up from the mud, and you expose all the creepy crawlies that have always been there, suddenly you have to look at what the mask has been hiding.
Yeah.
and how we refuse the divine, for lack of a better word. The guides say our only real problem as a species is our denial of God. That's it. If we could get past that, we wouldn't have big problems, because then there's no fear. And then you're not operating in fear or separation anymore. So, yeah, so if the charade is over, that means you are, Friedrich, who has known himself as the doctor and who's known himself with the name, Dr. Friedemann Schaub. That's how you would know yourself. It's like, okay, that's who I've been, but who am I without the name, without the career? That's when you begin to find out the deeper, I suspect.
Well, the interesting thing for me was that I was so attached to being a doctor that I identified myself with that until I got panic attacks. And they woke me up in the middle of the night and told me, you're going to not want to live like this for the next 25 years. And so this is when I left medicine, and this is when I left research and everything I was doing, and started something I feel more in alignment with. So I love this notion of the leap of faith and listening to the inner calling.
Yeah.
I think it's easier when you have a connection to the upper room. Can you give us a hint on how we can get more into this upper octave regularly and easily to see that bigger perspective?
Well, the book that just came out, it's called Beyond the Known, Realization. It's book one of the Beyond the Known trilogy. Is all about the upper room and how to get there. And frankly, they just offer very simple meditation. See, there's an aspect of you or of me that's always there. That always already exists there. It's just aligning to that part of us that's present there. So, they often take people through a short meditation where you're at a stairway with 3 steps. And the first step is the willingness to release release your attachment to identity as you've known it. The second seems to be something about releasing your ways of understanding what form or matter is through prior prescription. And then the third is the willingness to express at this level. And then they see a threshold, step over the threshold and claim the upper room. When the attunement for the upper room is a simple one. I am in the upper room. And you can often feel the energy lift right around you. I mean, when we do it in groups, it's astonishing. People can lift other people to the upper room too. You can feel it's like being in like a funnel of energy where everything just goes whoosh. You feel it, and it's a different way of operating. And once you're there, you can ask yourself what you're afraid of, and more than likely, you're going to find nothing. You have to go back down and find it, because you're operating in the present moment where fear isn't expressed, from this other level. So I would go to the book or the audio book, but it's a choice to embody at that level. Now, I think what the guides have been doing in all of their books is bringing us to this place. So it might be challenging for somebody who's never had experienced this before to try to get right there, but all of the attunements, which actually are present in all of the books, because in the recent books, because the guides always catch people up. They say it's a one-room schoolhouse. They bring their students up to the point they need to get to, are present. So I'll take it back to start where you want to. But yeah, the upper room is there. You align to it. I'm in the upper room, and then begin to have the experience.